The Reflections Grin. Wanda had always been captivated by antiques, believing that every single piece held a story and was waiting to be discovered. One rainy afternoon, she decided to indulge her passion and went looking for an antique shop. She found one she'd never really noticed before. The bell above the door tinkled softly as she entered, and the familiar scent of aged wood and forgotten memories filled the air. This was Wanda's shopping heaven. As she browsed, her eyes were drawn to an ornate, full-length mirror tucked away in a corner. Its gilded frame was intricately carved with floral patterns, and the glass, though slightly tarnished, held a mesmerizing allure. It almost sparkled. The shopkeeper, an elderly man with a kind but distant look in his eyes, noticed her interest. "Ah, the Venetian mirror," he said softly. "A beautiful piece, but with quite a history." Intrigued, Wanda inquired further, but the shopkeeper merely smiled and said, "Some stories are best discovered on one's own. Memories live in old pieces. Don't forget that, young lady." Unable to resist, Wanda purchased the mirror and brought it home to her new apartment. She placed it in her bedroom, opposite her bed, admiring how it added a touch of elegance to the room. Her small room was starting to reflect her personality, and with each item she brought in, she felt more and more at home. As the day progressed, she couldn't resist sneaking a few glances at herself in the new mirror. She was folding her freshly cleaned laundry on the bed, and she noticed something. The mirror somehow made her eyes look brighter and softened her skin. She jumped up off the bed and twirled around happily at her reflection. It was hard to pull herself away from her reflection. The mirror made her feel very special. Wanda was very happy with her purchase. She thought to herself, "This is why I prefer antiques." The mirror was the perfect addition to her growing collection. That night, as she prepared for bed, Wanda stood before the mirror brushing her hair. For a fleeting moment, she thought she saw a reflection smirk. That was odd. Her own expression, she knew she wasn't smirking. She was holding a neutral expression. She blinked, and the reflection mirrored her exactly at this point. "Wow, I am losing it," Wanda softly laughed. She chalked it up to fatigue, and then she dismissed the incident and went to sleep. It was a deep, restorative sleep, exactly the kind of sleep one needs to feel strong and refreshed. The tiredness was showing on Wanda's skin lately. The move was really rough. She felt alive and ready to go to work after this sleep. Over the next few days, subtle oddities began to unsettle Wanda. She would catch glimpses of her reflection, almost moving out of sync. Not large movements, but maybe a tilt of the head, a blink, a lingering gaze. One evening, as she read a book in bed, she glanced at the mirror and saw her reflection standing, staring directly at her. Her heart raced as she looked down at herself. Confirming she hadn't moved, she was still laying down. But when she looked back up at her reflection, it was seated in the mirror once again, looking exactly as she was. Was she actually losing it? Or maybe the move had been harder on her body than she thought. No, she knew what she had seen. Something was very off about this mirror. Wanda fell asleep on her couch that night. She was too unsettled to sleep in the same room as the mirror until she could figure out, A, she was in need of a break to regain her sense of self, or B, the mirror had a darker story that she really needed to uncover. Determined to uncover the truth, Wanda researched the mirror's origins. She thought maybe she should start with the mirror itself. She looked for manufacturer markings on the back and came across a name written in very old cursive. The name was Leonora Vitellini, 1211 Crest Street, Venice, Italy. Was this the shop, or was the owner of the mirror? After much research, Wanda discovered that the name had once belonged to a noblewoman in the 18th century in Venice, Italy. She was renowned far and wide for her beauty and extreme vanity. Legend actually had it that she made a pact with a dark entity to preserve her beauty and youth forever. But for some reason the deal had soured, and Leonora's soul was trapped within the mirror as her body withered away. Leonora was forced to watch her beautiful face twist with age and evil in the mirror. The mirror trapped her once youthful, beautiful soul. Leonora refused to part with the mirror, saying it would be the death of her and she must remain committed by its side. One night, while Leonora was sleeping, her father took the mirror and had it wrapped, sold, and shipped to America. He thought Leonora would regain her life and live again and join the outside world if he banished the mirror that she was so addicted to. Once Leonora realized the mirror was gone, she shrieked, "What have you done? I'm doomed." And instead of gaining her life, Leonora died. She remained in her room and died 2 weeks after the mirror's disappearance. When they removed Leonora from her room one last time, she looked not of a 23-year-old, but of a woman well into her 80s. That was quite the story. Wanda thought that it was very interesting, but she just couldn't bring herself to accept the idea that a mirror might actually hold Leonora's soul. But she also couldn't completely discount it either. Something was odd about the mirror, but was it actually Leonora or just an overly tired Wanda? Every day, Wanda brought home flowers to set in a vase by the mirror. She also decided to read happy, lovely stories out loud in her room near the mirror. She was hoping that if there was a chance the story was true, Leonora would soon learn there was much beauty in the world besides her actual beauty of her face. It doesn't matter, Wanda thought. You don't have to be beautiful on the outside as long as you're beautiful on the inside. And she shot her shot. Maybe Leonora would see that. Hopefully. For days, nothing seemed to happen. Nothing was amiss. And Wanda's life went back to normal. Her reflection in the mirror was normal. Nothing frightening happened, and life just seemed to go on. Wanda began to wonder if her idea of bringing Leonora happiness had actually worked. Lost in her thoughts, Wanda absent-mindedly glanced over to the mirror. She froze. Her own reflection was staring back at her with a look of anger and contempt. Arms folded, eyes glaring. Then in an instant, Wanda's reflection was back to normal. A very deep chill went down Wanda's back. Had she angered Leonora? Was her offering of beautiful things a taunt in some way? Had she made things worse? Wanda sat before the mirror, candlelight flickering all around her. She mustered up all of her courage she had and said, "Leonora, I know you're in there." Wanda's voice was trembling, not much more than a whisper. And she said, "What do you want, Leonora? What can I do? What do you want?" The room grew colder, and the reflection's eyes in the mirror seemed to darken once again. Wanda was looking at her own reflection with eyes she didn't recognize. They were black, they were evil, and they were cold. Wanda felt the overwhelming urge to run. But suddenly, her reflection spoke, and it was a voice that chilled her to her bone. "Freedom," it hissed. Wanda tried to catch her breath in her throat, but she tumbled backwards. Somehow she managed to say, But how? How can I help you?" "A trade," reflection replied, its lips curling into a sinister grin, eyes black and dark. Your freedom for mine. Fear gripped Wanda, but curiosity gnawed at her mind. And if I refuse? The reflection's grin widened unnaturally. Then I shall take it. The candle extinguished abruptly, plunging the room into darkness. Wanda felt a cold, damp hand grip her wrist, pulling her towards the mirror. How could this be real? Am I dreaming? She cried. Wanda struggled mightily, but an unseen evil force was overpowering her. She felt an unnatural darkness start to creep inside her mind. It wasn't a thought, it was a physical feeling. With a final, desperate scream, she pulled and pulled to get away, but the force was too strong. She was pulled into the mirror, and the glass rippled like a deep, black, watering hole. All of a sudden, all was quiet, and the sparkling, shiny, reflective mirror was back to normal. The room was silent. The next morning, the sun shone brightly, and the bedroom had a beautiful soft glow of sunlight. Wanda awoke, feeling strangely invigorated. She stood, she stretched, and glanced at the mirror. What a night. What a dream. Her reflection mimicked her movements perfectly. Smiling, she approached the mirror to get a better look at her bright eyes and softly glowing skin. After a few twirls of sheer delight, she leaned into the mirror very closely and whispered, "Freedom is mine at last." Deep within the glass, a pair of eyes widened in horror. A silent scream trapped behind the surface, which would wait for its turn for freedom.